EPs.
Wow.
And I already know a number of guys are gonna watch the video, so won't be here live. Um, but we'll be recording it. Hello, Mike.
Morning.
Let's say my hellos to you who are here, and I'll look forward to meeting you more. But for those that are in the room now and can hear me, I'm really looking forward to today and meeting you more individually. But thanks for showing up, and looking forward to seeing more of the group popping in here.
Hey, Jared, Jeff, Jim. 3 J's come in. Yeah. Mike Rosen. Who knew Chris Willett's middle name began with a C? Not me. I just learned something.
Any idea what it is?
He could tell us, but Charlie? Catman? He doesn't even know what we're saying. Chris?
Even when he can hear us, he doesn't know what we're saying.
Yeah, true. Hello, Michael Eatman. Dan Kemp. Sean Wooden. Hi, Sean.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning. Tom, how are you?
Good morning.
Michael and Anthony. Harsh from the Ukraine. Hey, Harsh. Okay. Welcome, everyone. It is top of the hour because I think we're all in various places. 10 a.m. Central Time is where I am, and guys are going to probably trickle in, but we're going to start on time. My name is Sean Emerson. Welcome to the Elders Program, and I'm going to be your host for today. So, why an Elders Program focused on guys over 50? Well, two primary reasons. Over the last 6 years or so, we've had men of what I'll say of a certain age pondering deep questions about what the second half of their life might look like. And as an organization that creates spaces for men to come together to connect, heal, and thrive, we thought it was only right that we would create a space to get for men of this age to come together to get some guidance and instruction and really to connect and ask these questions of one another. And so today is really the start of that initiative. The second reason is, as many of you probably know, younger guys are struggling. And our hope is that as we come together as older men and explore ourselves, that we can come together as what we like to say, compassionate, caring, courageous men to help guide these younger men. And so those are really the two initiatives around this program that we're putting together. So where do we start? So a few months ago, I finally I finally got around to reading my friend Jed's book, Male Menopause. And Jed wrote this book 27 years ago, and it was incredible to me about how relevant this book still is 30 years later. And so, what we decided to do in thinking about this elder program, that a great place to start was with our biology and how we're changing as men as we reach this age of 50 and older. So, Jed agreed to create this class and work with us and share this wisdom with all of us. Before I introduce Jed, a couple of comments about how this is going to work today. This really is a session where Jed is going to be kind of teaching us about really male menopause and some of the issues around it. He'll ask some questions and encourage you to share your thoughts in the chat. He might ask for a raise of hands every now and then. And if we have time at the end, then we'll have some discussion as well. But really, that's the level of interaction that we're going to have for the session. So let's get started. Dr. Jed Diamond, he's been married to his wife, Carlin, for over 40 years. He has 5 children, 17 grandchildren, and 3 great-grandchildren. He is a therapist, a renowned men's health advocate. He's written 17 books for men and people who love men. He is the founder of ManAlive and the Moonshot for Mankind. And he has been a member of the same men's group, I think, Jed, right, for over 40 years.
45.
45. So I would like to introduce you to my friend, Dr. Jed Diamond.
Well, thank you, Sean. And it's great to be with you all. I've been really looking forward to this for a long time. And it's kind of like a men's group. As Sean mentioned at the end, I've been part of a men's group that's been meeting for 45 years. My wife, Carlin, will tell you that one of the reasons she feels we have a successful and joyous 44-year marriage is because I've been in a men's group for 45 years. So a lot of what I want to share with you is from my experiences over the years. I thought what Sean and you all are doing with Men Living was definitely in my wheelhouse and what I do at ManAlive. And really, as we develop this program together, I'm really excited to share it with you. So let me just start by saying it's been said that the 2 most important days in our lives are the day we were born and the day we found out why. So for me, the day I was born was December 21st, 1943. And the day I found out why was November 21st, 1969, when I held my firstborn son in my arms, Jamal, and made a vow that I would be a different kind of father than my father was able to be for me, and to do everything I could to create a world where fathers and men were fully healed and healthy and involved with their families throughout their lives. So as Sean says, I now have 5 midlife children, or 6. I have a bonus daughter my wife and I acquired over the years that was a friend of our son's in Waldorf school and became kind of an added daughter. And all of our children are in midlife, as we'll talk about. And so I have, having been through it, if you added up my date of birth, you get that I'm 80 years old, and in a sense have gone through the midlife passage that we talked about. So I'd be interested if you all will kind of take a moment to reflect on why you're here. I really am here as part of my commitment ongoing to my children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, and all of your children and the generations to follow us that we're all here in the service of. But if you could reflect on why you're here and what maybe questions you're hoping will get answered in this time we have today, and hopefully in the ongoing course that is going to roll out over the next 7 weeks after this. So if you do have something to share, if you could either raise your hand if you'd like to share, or put some thoughts into the chat where you can just take a moment to see what questions you may be bringing, what things you want to learn from this experience.
Anybody want to share live?
Sure, I'll share live. As I get older, I just want the support of other men, because as my body changes and I have some mild shame about aging, it's good to know that I'm not alone, and that's why I'm here.
Thanks, Mike.
Yeah, I'm willing to share.
Uh,
Go ahead, Al.
I'm looking for new.
Go ahead, Al.
Please go ahead.
Alfred.
Yeah, as I'm getting older, I'm looking for a new purpose in life, because my purpose, my professional purpose has changed. I'm mostly retired, and I feel there is a big vacuum right now. And I'm looking for ways to fill it, and that's why I'm here.
Thank you. Couple more.
Well, I think I'm the youngest one in this meeting. By profession, I'm a doctor, and throughout, I'm as of now 25 years of age, and throughout this, period, I'm the physician, I'm a doctor, and what I've studied all over the courses in the medicine throughout my life is just about female menopause and their emotions, the therapies they used to get, the hormone replacement therapy that I used to perform all these things for women's. But as far as I know, I'm studying medicine almost 7 years, and I've never come across with something like menopause. It was quite fascinating for me, like what is this means, because we all know like the woman menopause, the hormone replacement therapies, the changes, and all those things. But nobody cares. Even the medicine also don't care about the men and how they feel when they age. So that is what made me join this meeting to get some experience. Well, I used to deal with the old persons, young persons in the clinics, in the hospitals, but nobody's talking about this actually. Everybody is concerned with the female menopause, the changes, and all those things. So we are developing therapies for the females to overcome those things. Like we are having even hormone replacement therapies, and a lot of things. I used to work with psychiatrists also, and they are always very keen to when it comes to emotional well-being and the physiological changes and physical. They are more keen to females as compared to males. So,
Thank,
yeah, thank you.
thank you, Harsh. Jed?
Yeah, so let's continue. And a number of other people wrote things in the chat, which I looked at as we're going, and we'll look at in more detail. So I might just say, if anybody, I think most of you have your sound muted when you're not talking, so there's not any background noise, but just remind us all. So I want to share some ways in which we can address these issues. And I will be sharing a number of quotes, or I call them gems of wisdom. And I use these not in the way most people do of, oh, this is an interesting quote. We send it around to our friends or we put it in a folder. These are things that either I've wrestled with my whole life, people that I know that I've worked with, people that I've interacted with. So I really use these every day in my lives, and I've chosen them to really bring gems of wisdom to you that we can begin to unpack, that will give us, I think, some insights into these areas that we're going to discuss today. So the first one I want to bring up is a quote by uh, Carl Jung, the psychiatrist. And he says, life really begins at 40. Up until then, we're just doing research. So just let that sink into your being. How does that resonate inside you? Life really begins at 40. Up until then, we're just doing research. Let me give you another one, second one that is also a quote by Jung. He says, we cannot live the afternoon of life according to the program of life's morning. For what in the morning was true will in evening become a lie. And again, just let that resonate inside you. For me, let me just talk about these two quotes a little bit as it applies to what we're going to be exploring today. The first, the afternoon of life is different from the morning. And when we hit midlife, 40 or whenever that is, we're just getting started. You know, this is, in a sense, the beginning, not the end or the slide to going downhill. And the second quote is, not only is 40 or 35 the beginning, but in some ways, it's a truth that is different from who we were, how we saw life in the morning. So again, if you have any thoughts about that, you can write them down for yourself, put them in the chat. They're just ways to now focus your energy and ours together in what's this journey we're going to continue on today. So let's bring in the next slide. So this is one by my friend and colleague Chip Conley. It says, in a world with more and more centenarians, midlife may last from 35 to 75. So just as adolescence is a transitional stage between childhood and adulthood, midlife is a transitional stage between adulthood and elderhood. So again, just let that reality sink into you. Okay, and let's just bring us back together now. We can turn the slides off. And so just take that in as we look at each other. We look inside us as men, that there really is a different energy, I believe, and a number of you have alluded it to, between what women go through in their lives as women and what men go through. And when I wrote the book Male Menopause, it was a response to a similar experience that a number of you mentioned, which was we kind of understand menopause. Women go through that. We have some sense of that. But what is it that men go through? And I started realizing in my own midlife that I was going through something too, in addition to what I saw my wife and women going through. And I got interested in what that was. And so one of the themes that we're going to get into today and in the continuing course that we're going to be doing is the importance of the biological, the hormonal, that has been neglected in men's lives. Women have been much more tuned in to their own biological rhythms. And what women told me about men was that it's about time you guys finally figured out you have biological rhythms as well. When I started this book, as Sean said many, many years ago, it was women who really were the ones that caught on the soonest. It took a while for men to get, oh yeah, this term, male menopause, is something real. So I'll get into that in more depth, but just want to just check in with you all as you're feeling this, and invite you again to write anything, either just yourself or in the chat, that resonates for you as you kind of look out at the men, you look inward at your own energies, and what these messages resonate with. Now, let me ask you a couple other questions from this that while we're on camera. How many of you, we talked with Chip, that quote about this midlife period going from 35 to 75. So first of all, how many of you think or plan or hope to live to be at least 100? Raise your hands. Okay, some people. And how many?
On about 80.
Okay. So how many here, just show of hands, are between the ages of 35 and 75? Raise your hands. Not me, but you all. Anybody here? Somebody said they're the youngest person here. Are you younger than 35? No, I don't think so. Okay, so part of what we want to explore then is what this period of life is about for us. What are some of the challenges that you all face and we all face in this midlife period? And, I'll talk, because those of you that hope to live at least beyond midlife, which I think sounds like everybody, at least you'd like to live. And the key is, I think, healthy. Am I right? Nobody wants to live sick and hospitalized and, not a full life. We want to live healthy, long lives. Am I right? I see some nods of heads, so I think you're with me on that. So let me go a little deeper down. Let's get the next slide. So this is a quote by Gail Sheehy, the author. She's written a number of books, including a book on menopause for women. Yeah, living in a nursing home is not something that I'd wish for, living to 100 in a nursing home. So what Gail Sheehy said was, if menopause is the silent passage, male menopause is the unspeakable passage. It is fraught with secrecy, shame, and denial. It is much more fundamental than the ending of the fertile period of a woman's life, because it strikes at the core of what it means to be a man. Thought that was a pretty profound recognition from a woman who had written a book about menopause and was focused at that time, and still throughout, I think, her career, mostly on women and women's health. So again, let me bring you back all to the room, because I want to ask you a question that you can respond to with hands again. So how many people had a view sometime in your life that midlife was really a slide downhill, that you really thought about the disability, the illness, the problems? How many at some time in your life, had that view of what midlife was like? Just show your hands if that was ever true of you any time in your life. Okay, a number of you.
After
Um,
I turned 40,
After
uh,
you turned 40. Yeah, go ahead.
people would ask, and I would say that, I'm still going to the gym and I'm still trying to do what I can, but at this point, it's all about managing the decline.
Yeah. Yeah, that's that's very well said. I think that's something I felt and I heard from many others. And let me kind of ask the reciprocal kind of question. How many in midlife really heard the positive side, that got messages from your father or uncles or men in your life, or now more recently as you've read about men aging, that were positive about what we're looking forward to, that this could be the most powerful, most productive, most changing time? How many of you heard that? Raise your hands. Okay, a few, not so many. So this whole journey together, in some ways, I think could be summarized that really we have to deal with both. Because to pretend that there aren't some challenges that we're going to go through, that our bodies are going to age, our hormones are going to go down, we're going to have illnesses, we're going to have challenges, would be to deny life. On the other hand, to think of this as all that we have to look forward to, I think also denies and takes us away from the truth of our lives. So let's see. Let's see the next slide, Sean. This I think will kind of take us to next one. Oh no, this is the one I wanted to speak to first. So yes, so the purpose of male menopause. This is my quote from the book. Purpose of male menopause is to signal the end of the first part of a man's life and prepare him for the second half. Male menopause is not the beginning of the end, as many fear, but the end of the beginning. It is the passage to the most passionate, powerful, productive, and purposeful time of a man's life. Let me just underline that last sentence. It is the passage to the most passionate, powerful, productive, and purposeful time of a man's life. So take that in for a moment. And again, let's bring us all back into the room together and feel that possibility, that in addition to some of the disabilities that we'll experience. And while I'm just saying that, what the science has shown, what the men that are living well and long. I'm part of an organization that's an international one called the Blue Zones. Any of you familiar with the term the Blue Zones, which are places in the world where they found in research study that people not only lived long, but they lived healthy, long lives. And there've been a number of books about it, and a number of communities have been picked to become Blue Zones exemplars, to be able to work together to change how we live in our modern life, to take into account the research that shows there are people that are living not only long, but very healthy lives, who are 100 years old, still working, in the field, still enjoying sex, still enjoying life. And we want to learn from those guys and those women, and Blue Zones is a way to do that. So just take in this possibility and this hope and this process, because it's a process of letting go of some of the old programming that have come to us from the just aging is downhill, and bringing in the new research that has been going on that often men don't know about, which is why we're doing this to bring you the latest research. So take that in and bring up the next slide. So this is, again, a quote, and yeah, so this was from a New York Times article, a woman writing about this time of life. Often the early research on male menopause was a lot influenced by women's writing. So this is Martha Weinman Lear. She says, the hormone production levels are dropping, the sexual vigor is diminishing, the children are leaving, the parents are dying, the job horizons are narrowing, the friends are having their first heart attacks, the past floods by in a fog of hopes, unrealized opportunities not grasped, women not vetted, potentials not fulfilled, and the future is a confrontation with one's own mortality. So back to us together in the room. So let's unpack that one. And just again, show of hands, how many of us here have experienced the feeling that our hormone levels are dropping? Raise your hands. How many have felt their sexual vigor diminishing? How many have seen children leaving, and if you have children leaving home, going off on their own? How many have had parents dying during this period? How many have had job horizons narrowing or feeling of, yeah, lots and some feeling with that? I sure do. Friends having serious illnesses. How many have had that or dying? Regrets about hopes unrealized. Few of us. Opportunities not grasped, feeling that some of the things we'd wanted have somehow gotten away from us. Lost sexual and romantic opportunities that we had hoped to have that seemed to be going by the wayside. And finally, potentials not fulfilled. So I think it's safe to say most of us have had some or all of these kinds of things gone on in our lives. Anybody have any just comment? Anybody want to say anything on camera just about any of this for you personally that stands out to you that you'd be open to sharing?
I'm not as pessimistic as the last quote. I think the last quote is a little bit of a downer.
Yeah.
Even though I have lost friends, even though my daughter has moved out of the house, I feel very good right now in my life. And I think that's a little bit of a downer.
Gotcha. Thank you for sharing. Anybody else?
You know, one of my,
share.
oh, go ahead, please. Whoever was speaking, go ahead.
Oh, all right, thanks. Well, in my midlife, soon after I turned 40, I came out as a gay man. And so that changed everything for me. And so I am still dealing with that, these other changes that we're going through, and what effect, how am I navigating this in my later life?
Gotcha. Thank you.
So what I was going to share, Jed, is, you know, and I talk about this frequently. One of my unique situations is that I'm 60 and I have a 6-year-old daughter at home and a 40-year-old wife. So I'm entering this sort of deeper stage of the transition to eldership in a life circumstance that's really not in alignment with it happening gracefully. So that's where I really sometimes bang my head against the wall. Is like, how can I be who I am right now biologically, but show up the way my wife and daughter kind of need me to? So that's just a personal situation, but
Yeah.
Point.
Well, that's let me just kind of speak a little to that, is that I think that speaks to the reality that as we are living longer and healthier lives, we have opportunities to have, you know, second and third lives that other people in previous times never had. And for some of us, that includes second marriages or multiple later relationships, sometimes children later in life. I mean, in my case, I think some of you, know a little bit about my story. And if you have been to my website, you see the headline Confessions of a Twice Divorced Marriage Counselor as my kind of intro to my my life and my work. In this context, it recognizes that, I had a first marriage fairly young in college and had children that I mentioned a bit, my son Jamal, and we adopted a little daughter Angela, and then, a marriage ended, and I remarried, and I had some new children came into my life. And in my case, I had some older children and some younger children. But it speaks to the fact that many of us are in different phases at the same time. As you mentioned, Jim, that you may be biologically older, but you may be, having younger children in a time when most people's children are at other ages, or in other ways are in different phases than we were in other times of our life. So anything else anybody like to say? I think this is an interesting kind of area of discussion. So anything else this brings up for anybody?
So Jed, Alfred asked in the chat, what defines the onset of male menopause? A biological change or a change of circumstance, decline of physical capabilities, kids leave the house, loss of profession. I think it's interesting in the book as you make the linkages between not only some of the biological changes, but some of these cultural, family, and personal instances, and the linkage between the two. So would you want to comment on that for a second?
Yeah, so let me talk a little bit about the book and the research that went into the book, because at the time when I wrote it, there was almost nothing written about the male change of life. Everything that was written, and there was a lot written about menopause. And when I said, I wonder if men go through something, as I was, at that stage of life. And quite frankly, when my wife was going through menopause, and I was blaming her on a lot of the problems that we had, our sexual life was getting weird. She was less interested. A lot of the negative things that were there. And once she was coming out of it and was getting back to herself, she was saying to me, I think you're going through something too. I think, and I went, no, not me. I mean, I'm a guy, I can't be going through that. So that kind of started me on a journey, and looking at myself, talking to other men, and finding out it wasn't just me. So as a writer, I thought, okay, here's an opportunity to write about something that maybe a lot of people may be going through that nobody's writing about, nobody knows about, and maybe I can be the first. So when I started asking questions and doing a questionnaire to other men that were in midlife, and then doing research on it, I found that, one, nothing else was written. And as a writer, there are two things that you want to be a good and successful writer. You want something that will be leading the field where not too many people are writing about it yet, but you want enough people that there might be some interest in it. And I was kind of at the front end of that. I thought, oh my God, I've written about something that nobody else is interested in, because to even write the book, I had to get studies translated from other languages, because there's almost nothing in English. The few studies that were being done on male change of life were in Russia, Greece, Australia, I didn't need to get translated, except from Aussie English to American English. But when the book came out, it had been instantly, very quickly, an international bestseller. It struck a chord very fast. It got translated into 15 foreign languages very quickly. So it all of a sudden, you know, hit the mainstream. And there were two things that it brought out. One was a recognition that there was a biological basis, as to answer your question, Sean. There is a biological basis to male change of life, just as there is for women. I think about it this way, and again, we'll just a little quick show of hands. How many people here have gone through puberty? Raise your hands. I think everybody would say, yeah, we've all gone through puberty. I think everybody would agree there's a significant hormonal aspect to puberty. Am I right? And we know that at puberty, hormones, particularly testosterone, goes up, comes online, and among other changes, body changes and so on, as well as psychological, am I right, social changes, sexual changes, interpersonal changes. But I began to start with the idea that male menopause, and I must say, when I started the research, my idea was that whatever men went through would be very different from what women went through. And I thought my book would be called something like Andropause. That would be a manly name, not menopause or male menopause. And I picked the name because the research actually showed that there were more similarities in what men went through than differences. And there were some significant differences. One of the main ones is the truth that most of you all who are in midlife can still have children biologically. Males have children later in life. Women who go through menopause can't have kids anymore. Am I right? An obvious difference. And that difference makes a difference in our interpersonal lives, in our relationship lives. The fact that men can biologically have children later in life and women after menopause can't. I talk about in our relationship world, we have to deal with that reality. You know, there's a biological reason why older men may be attracted to younger women, beside, you know, all the jokes and all the negative things about dirty old men. It's that men can still reproduce biologically, and our biological desire to reproduce, you know, guides us towards females who are biologically capable of making babies. And women who are after menopause may have other reasons to get interested in younger men, but it isn't to be able to make more babies together. Let that just sink in for a minute, because it's a biological reality, like so many other biological realities of menopause. Male menopause makes a big difference that has been neglected when we understand what's going on with men and men's lives. The other thing that got triggered, in addition to a worldwide interest in the biological reality of male menopause, was most of the programs that were spun off from there had a single assumption that was inaccurate, which was, if there is a biological basis for the change of life that has to do with hormones dropping, maybe the cure for whatever this is that men go through is simply get more testosterone. And as many of you know, or if you followed any of this, testosterone clinics started all over the country, all over the world. You know, go to get a shot or a cream or some potion to increase your testosterone levels. But what I said in the book, and this was significant, which was that male menopause was a multi-dimensional change of life that had biological roots. So it was driven by a biological change. And if you look at male testosterone drop, it generally happens between 35 and 45 or 50, but it can start early. You know, it can begin to drop earlier in life, or it can stay pretty high until later in life and starting dropping. So there is a biological basis hormonally driven, with psychological, social, and relational issues that are part of that. Nobody at that time was talking about a multi-dimensional change of life. And very few people now, even as we're, in our modern age, where whatever you call it, male menopause, andropause, menopause, there's a lot of different names have come up. I still use male menopause because it's kind of become a watchword and associated with me in the book and research that's gone on afterwards. But it's multidimensional, and a lot of what we're going to talk about a little bit more as we talk today, and a lot more as we talk in the future, is going to build on the biological reality of maleness and what it means in midlife and beyond, what it means with young boys and younger men who, part of this course, as you know, and we'll talk more, is not just what we will learn for ourselves and each other to help our own lives as midlife men, but what we can then pass on to younger men. And hopefully what we'll be able to pass on is that they are biological too, and they are biological beings that have hormonal changes and other changes that are part of the full repertoire of what it means to be a man. So let me just take a deep breath, let you take a deep breath, and just breathe for a minute. Because I'm going to give you another slide, and then we'll probably take a little break after. So this, if the last slide sounded dark, this one may feel even darker. So let me just unpack this side. This is suicide of males versus females. This is statistics from the Center for Disease Control. Let me just kind of guide you through what you're seeing. So you see men's death rates on the left, my left, and I guess it's your left too as you're looking, and women's on the right. The black bar is total, and the colored bars are at different age groups. As you see, the up at the top it says total, that's the black, and then at 55 to 64, 65 to 74, 75 to 84, and 85 and older. Males on the left, females on the right. So what's obvious just from looking at the slide is that the suicide rates for men are higher significantly than females. I think most people have heard the statistic that the suicide rate for males is generally, and this is worldwide, generally, there's variations, but generally about 4 times higher than it is for females. You heard that statistic. What is often not reported is that there's a significantly higher rate for males that are older, that the rate goes up significantly as we get older, as you see on the slide comparison. So back to full screen where we can all see each other. We can come back to that. But I just like to just query you all, which is a question I've been wrestling with my whole life. So let me tell you just a little bit of my story. Some of you know it or have heard of it. I've written about it, which was that when I was 5 years old, my father, who was in midlife, took an overdose of sleeping pills because he felt that he could not give what he felt his family needed and be able to earn a living, because he was not able to do that. He was a blacklisted writer in the time in the 50s, 60s, 40s, during that era of the blacklisted in Hollywood. But he didn't die. And I grew up wondering what happened to my father, whether it would happen to me. And so I had an interest in the reality of men and suicide. And so the statistics that we showed you and were part of continuing studies that are going on to ask that question, why is it true that men as a group die from suicide? We die from other reasons that we are part of this story as well. But of all the ways males die, the most significant difference between males and females is in the suicide rate. In other words, if you're comparing life expectancy for women and men, and you look at the causes of death by heart disease, cancer, other things, the greatest discrepancy between males and females is in suicide, which is obviously in some way an active act of despair. My father was in despair and feeling that his being as a man, because he felt that breadwinner role was tied to him and that he needed to make a living. And if he didn't and wasn't able to, then somehow he was a failure to such a degree that he felt his family would be better off without him. And these statistics that I showed you are a reality. It may be a dark reality, but a reality that I think we all, as men, need to understand, pay attention to, and ask the question I've been asking my whole life is why? Why did it happen to my dad? Could it happen to me? You know, I lived with that reality and have, written about my own time when I was suicidal, when I wondered whether I might be following in my father's footsteps, but I would complete the task, and how I could prevent other people, including myself and my sons and my children, from doing that. So I just ask you first to reflect on that question. Why? Why do you think males, and it's particularly white males, we're not all white males in this room, but we're predominantly white males. And in this particular aspect, white males have a higher suicide rate than other ethnic or other background males. It's something that is particularly relevant to white males. So reflect on the thoughts, and if anybody wants to write anything, I see some of you are posting in the chat, and if anybody wants to, just share anything you'd like to on camera with us all about what do you think? What's your thoughts about why men as a group, men as they get older, might be more likely to want to end our lives than women as a group, who also have challenges? Women as a group get older. Women as a group have, things that they feel despair about, but they don't kill themselves by suicide at the rate that men do.
Peter?
Yeah. I've noticed this, and this is the great thing about Men Living. And I'm going to be necessarily vague here. I've been in men group where a man over 70 talked about an incredibly traumatic experience for the first time. He had carried this past until he was 7. I've had other men in Men Living groups reveal some incredibly traumatic stuff that it was heart-wrenching. I have been in other men organizations, and there is a level of numbness, like their face is shot full of Novocaine. They have an inability to not laugh. They have an inability, an inability to laugh. They have an inability to get angry. They have this numbness about them. And then I was with a man that we had I was involved with rearranging co-counseling. We had a co-counseling relationship. After 2 years, he talked about how his dad beat the living shit out of him. But it took 2 years for him to talk about that. And then there was other horrible, traumatic stuff that he dealt with. We, I think, as men are carrying around a lot of trauma that was done to us. And what is wonderful now is this revolution here happening, and particularly with Men Living Groups. Thank God for Todd for starting this organization, guys. That is so important. We need to heal, and I've felt this very, very strongly. And that's part of why I believe we have the suicide discrepancy with women, because women feel far more able to reveal painful trauma than men do. And with that, I'm done.
Thank you, Peter.
Todd?
I think thank you, Peter. I think the reason more men die by suicide as they get older is our value is predicated upon our ability to make money. And then the minute that we retire, we're not making money the way we once did. I think that's a significant factor because our value just plummets. And Todd mentioned this, but I think we're more successful at it. I understand women actually attempt suicide almost as much as us men do, but we have greater access to lethal means. That's it.
I'm not saying that it's I'm prefacing this with I am not suicidal. So anything I say after this doesn't mean that I'm suicidal. I was brought up, as I'm sure many of you were, that my role as a man was to provide and protect and to be there and to function. And I was not supposed to not work. So when I did struggle with mental issues over the years, all it came down to for me was a pass fail of, am I functioning? Literally, can I white knuckle it, make it through the day, get the paycheck, don't wig out? And that was it. That was the entirety of why I was here. So now, as I get older and my kids are leaving, and I'm not necessarily needed in that role, I'm looking forward to moving on to the next stage. But I can see very clearly why somebody who had values like that might see themselves as no longer necessary.
Thanks, Todd.
I'll share quickly. Sadly, similar story. I lost my father to suicide when I was 21, and very same reason. He felt he wasn't able to provide for his family, and unfortunately, he was successful. So I know that's not new information, but clearly that's a big factor. I'm sure there are others. Just wanted to share that.
Thanks, Tony.
Jared's got his hand up, Sean.
Oh,
I just
Jerry?
wanted to throw a couple comments out here. So I hate to use stereotypes, but I kind of need to do that to make my comment, is that men in our culture still have this Western singular man about town, pioneer. He's a leader, he's self-sustainable, he's going to support his family, his network, his children, that type of thing. However, there's also an equal number of men who are single and never married who may not experience that. So this whole topic of menopause is kind of really changes if you really factor in the number of men who are single and never married, whether they're gay or not gay. There are a number of equal heterosexual men that are never married in their life. I have an uncle never got married. But the thing is that all of us in Western culture lack something that there are in other cultures that are not Western, and that is they have tribal leaders, tribal elders, somebody who mentors them in the way of living and aging. We completely lack that. I'm very fortunate that my network includes older men that are in their 80s and 90s who have mentored me starting when I was in my 40s. And so I have really adjusted to aging, how my body ages, how my body changes. I've accepted those roles, my role in society. And equally so, I think we were able to have an opportunity to really examine our lives during COVID when everybody was being self-isolated. Can you live with yourself? What kind of reflection were you doing? That type of thing. And more importantly, I saw Erik Erikson's 8 stages of development really play out in real life, especially when you get to stages 6, 7, and 8. When you're examining, was my life purposeful? Was it meaningful? What kind of legacy am I leaving? All of us have the ability to ask ourselves these questions, but are you, as an individual, pursuing them? I have, but I'm a rarity. My personal social network in the geographic area where I live, the men that are in that particular geographic area, they've never asked themselves these questions, and they find it really intriguing that I've pursued this or they haven't. But I've chosen a different path than they did. I sought out mentors and leaders, whereas they didn't. Many of them are single, never married, and so they have this extended adolescence that has played out, and they don't know how to navigate older life and how to get there and navigate towards their end of life and their quality of life. Thank you.
Thanks, Bill. Jared, were you gonna comment?
Yeah, thank you. And thank you all for your responses. Very interesting, just to process this all. But to go back to what I understand is the question of what's the separation between why suicide is more prevalent, successful suicides is more prevalent in men compared to women. What really speaks to me is that when we are not, when we're not given the proper tools to manage our mind becomes our biggest enemy, and we stay trapped within the mind space. And women have generally been more heart-centered in their development, their community, their nurturers. And we're in this new revolution through this work, but men, it's very an individualistic path. It's survival of the fittest. It's climb the top. It's very societal programming. And if you don't fit into that societal mold, you don't feel worthy enough. You don't feel provider. That was a word that came up of my worth is tied to how much money I'm bringing in. And so I feel like men, again, we're changing this paradigm slowly. It's happening. But we're not taught the proper tools on how to manage the mind. And then the mind starts turning on us and it gets dark. And until we have spaces where we can create to thrive and heal and connect and come together, it just gets dark and it gets heavy, and it becomes that choice of life is easier. The easier path is just to check out. And I speak from personal experience battling these kinds of things and the father wound and fatherhood trauma and stuff like that as well. And so women have generally had the networks and communities, and we just haven't been given the proper tools. Our tools have been just do whatever you can to be the best, make as much money, define yourself based on societal mold. And if you don't fit that, the weights start adding on, and then life just gets heavier and heavier and turns dark. So
thanks, Jared. Jed?
This is very powerful, I think, for everybody. And for me, just again, speak a little for myself. These issues to me touch at the core of who I am as a person, who I am as a man, why I'm doing this work. You know, back to the promise that I made at the beginning, the day I was born and the day I found out why. Well, part of the why really was to give a different future to my children. You know, we all start, if we have children, with who's close to home. our children, our sisters, brothers, nephews, nieces, whoever's close. And those of us that don't have children, biological or otherwise, have young people in our lives. But I wanted a different future for them. I wanted a different future for myself as I got older. I wanted a different future for every one of you that's in this room who I'm getting to know now, and men in my men's group that have been meeting now for 45 years. And in my group, it's part of why I'm hanging out with this group today. And my group, which was older men, we started out 45 years ago. There were 7 of us in the group, and I was the middle guy in age. And since the group started, the first 3 men died in order of age, and I became the eldest about 3 years ago. And since then, one of the younger men has since died. So now there are just 3 of us alive. The group still meets. I go out every day and I talk to the group. We hold our meeting. Only 4 of the guys are in my imagining or in the reality, who knows, in the other world. But I still talk to them. I still get wisdom from them. We still discuss. And then the group of us that are 3 of us that are still alive still get together regularly, as we have our commitment to each other is that we will stay together till the last guy has died, and the last one will toast to the others. If it's me, I'll still be talking to the group. If it's somebody else, whether they do or not, they'll have to decide that. So what I'd like to kind of end this kind of half of our talk today, and then I want to take a little break, is with the recognition that this is good work, what we're doing in our lives, the fact that we're here, I think, and knowing that some of those close to us are not here. You know, those that have died by suicide, those that have died in other ways that may not look like suicide. You know, I have friends that didn't die by active suicide, but died in other ways that were a result of lives that were, in all the ways you describe, cut off from their deepest truth and did not have the support system. Because this is what, to me, is the core, the key to my work and my life. And the fact that we're doing this together is a recognition that this is kind of what it's about. So, Sean, do you want to just kind of take any final things before maybe a 5-6 minute break to stretch, you know, go to the bathroom, whatever you need to do, and then we'll come back for the, you know, last part of our time together. Sean?
Yeah, why don't we take 10 minutes, guys? So come back at 15 past the hour, quarter past the hour, and we'll spend the next 45 minutes with Jed. So we'll see you in about 10 minutes.
And Sean, before you take a break, what's the next slide for us? Because I want to see where we are.
Hold on. It's the beginning of the review of the class, Jed.
Okay, that's fine. Good. Then I'm set. So I'm going to take a break as well. I'll be away from camera till then.
Okay. Okay, Jed.
Okay. Well, hope you got a stretch, a refresh, and welcome back. So I want to take you back to an earlier time in my life as we move into the second half here. I went to college at UC Santa Barbara when I lived at home in Los Angeles, and Santa Barbara was a good distance away from home, so I could kind of get out on my own. And two events happened while I was there that were significant. Many events, but two that I'll share. One was I met my first wife, and we fell in love and decided to get married. And we made one of these childhood kind of future agreements that often you don't actually do, but when you are young and in love, you make decisions. Well, we made a decision that we thought it would be a good idea. We both wanted children, that we would have a child and then adopt a child, since the world was getting crowded and we thought bringing in more children would overcrowd it. So we had a biological child, Jamal. I mentioned him, was that little baby I held in my arms and made the vow to be a different kind of father. And then in college, we said we would adopt a child, which we did. Her name's Angela, and she's an African-American, beautiful baby. We adopted when she was 2.5 months old. She's now 52 and has children and grandchildren of her own. I mentioned my 3 great-grandchildren are from Angela's side of the family. And I bring that up to say a couple of things. That one, our roots are important, and the different threads of our lives are important. And these two parts of my family world of male and female, Anglo white background, Jewish background, and my daughter African American background from Mali is where her biological ancestry is from. The second event was in college at UC Santa Barbara. I met the philosopher Paul Tillich, who changed my life. And Paul Tillich said something that I've created a picture for me to follow, that I just offered to you all as part of the guiding light for me. Again, another one of these gems that has influenced me. So he said the following. He said, every serious thinker must ask and answer 3 fundamental questions. 1, what is wrong with us, with men, women, society? What is the nature of our alienation, our dis-ease? 2, what would we be like if we were whole, healed, actualized, if our potentiality was fulfilled? 3, how do we move from our condition of brokenness to wholeness? What are the means of healing? It's Paul Tillich. I didn't know who he was at the time. It just seemed like a cool philosopher guy that became kind of a mentor for me in college, and his words have continued to guide me. So I think what you all are doing, what we all are doing today, what we hope to do with the ongoing course that will start next week, which I'll talk a little bit about in a minute, and just the work that we all are doing in the world, I think in some way is our attempt to answer those questions and to make them real in our lives. And I'll give you just one other quote. This was, again, one of the gems more recent that I got actually a couple of months ago. I found this one, and it's by a guy named Martin Seeger, who's a clinical psychologist that has written about evolutionary roots of our background. And he says the following, Martin Seeger: human beings are evolved mammals, and they have never stopped being so. Whatever social, cultural, and political structures are placed upon us as humans, they cannot erase our mammalian heritage. So part of the core of, kind of what I've shared up till now, the male menopause, the hormonal things, is even broader in the sense that we are all male mammals. Take that into account as you're thinking about yourselves as men, and our heritage, our lineage, not only goes back through our fathers and our fathers' fathers and our mothers and our mothers' mothers, but all the way back in evolutionary time in our mammalian line. And what can we learn from our mammal brothers and sisters about who we are as people, who we are as men, who we are as male mammals? So I want to say a few more things about the topic that we hopefully covered in different ways today, which looked at 3 interrelated failures or difficulties or challenges that we said: the failure to address hormonal changes. And now I'm even expanding that to say our failure to look at our biological roots as male mammals. And secondly, the failure to address the psychological conditions and confusions that we have. And we've talked about a lot of those and some of the causes. And the failure to address relational upheavals. So I want to say just a little bit more about those, and then I want to build on those to tell you, in a sense, by way of bringing this day to a conclusion, and to point us towards the course that Sean and I developed, that I'll be teaching and you all will be part of, hopefully in some ways, that looks at what we can now put into practice about these things. So for me, these 3 areas of our hormonal biological roots and the confusions that we have when we don't recognize who we are. A couple of you have mentioned the importance of coming home to ourselves. And I think we only come home to ourselves in community. We only, in fact, exist in community. I think it's one of the myths of maleness, and a number of you have talked about it, that we are told that we are lone rangers. Some of us talk about lone wolves, but wolves never operated alone in the real world of wolves. Wolves always were part of a pack. This idea I grew up with, it may date me. The Lone Ranger was this masked man, that rode the plains and solved, killed bad guys and had a companion, Indian companion. There was always some companion that the guys had. But the truth is, we heal in community, and we learn in community, and we learn in community and pass on our wisdom in community. And to fail to do that is part of, I think, the core of why we're killing ourselves at record numbers, where the suicide rate not only has gone up, as we talked about with older men, but it's starting to affect younger men. That probably the fastest growing suicide rates are in younger men, guys in their 20s and younger. And when we look at suicide, it wasn't on the chart I shared, but we know that death by suicide is higher in males. That goes all the way back into childhood. They follow suicide rates for children, 10, 12, 13, 14 years old, even before adolescence. Very low rates for males and females, but wherever you find the rates are higher for males. And we've talked about some of those reasons. So I want to, with the time that we have together today, I want to go into some detail now about building on what we've talked about and now sharing how these will be rolled out in this next part of our course. So Sean. So this 7-week course is called the Male Menopause Masterclass. It's called The Passage to the Most Passionate, Powerful, Productive, and Purposeful Time of Your Life. And in week 1, so again, I'm going to have you do a similar thing to reflect on these words. So in the first week, we're going to explore the facts of life and death and disability in males versus females and describe the unique vulnerabilities that males face from birth through old age. And here's the gem that I offer for the kickoff for this week. It's a quote by Marian Legato, who is a colleague, an MD. She started the Foundation for Gender-Specific Medicine. I was one of the early adopters of this whole notion that medicine and healing need to be gender-specific. And what she says in this regard, if it's true that men rule the world, it comes at a heavy cost. From conception until death, men are inherently more fragile and vulnerable than women. In virtually every society today, men die first. So again, let that sink in. And again, bring back to the whole group. I want to kind of speak to you all about this. One of the deadly myths we've been told is that not only do men rule the world, we're the top guns, we're the Lone Rangers, we're all of that. We're also the heads of corporations, we're presidents, we occupy all these positions of power. Well, the truth is, the biological truth, a deeper truth, is that males are inherently more vulnerable than females. We'll talk a good deal about this, but I'll just say at this point, inherently more vulnerable. It means biologically, there is reasons why males, in sense, are die sooner. It isn't just we take more risks, we use more deadly weapons. All of that is true, but inherently, we're more vulnerable. Our systems, our biology is more vulnerable than females. And I want to suggest, and we will get into in more depth, is our superpower, male superpower, I'm going to suggest is our vulnerability, the recognition of our vulnerability, our ability to be able to share that vulnerability and that truth with other men and other people is part of what you all and we all do. So next slide, Sean. So in week number 2, we're going to delve into the realities of male biology and the ways that male vulnerabilities must be understood and accepted, particularly as we move into the second half of life. And this quote by my colleague, David Page, is an MD, professor of biology at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology at MIT. And he says, and again, take this into your bodies. There are 10 trillion cells in the human body, and every one of them is sex specific. Men and women are not equal in our genome, and men and women are not equal in the face of disease. And again, let me see you all, including blood. No, not including blood. Somebody asked a question. In terms of the genomes, all the other cells, the red blood cells don't have our genetic material, but all the other cells, the 10 trillion cells, all carry an X and Y chromosome if we're male, except for very small numbers that have abnormalities where you don't have an X and Y chromosome, you have more of one or the other. But I'm guessing, given statistics, everyone that's in this room, everyone that will be in this class, if you're male, you have an XY chromosome in every cell of your body. And you all who are not males, who are females, have 2X chromosomes in every cell of your body. And that means something very significant in terms of who we are biologically, why we're more vulnerable as males, and what we need to do to accept that reality and take that into account so that we can live long, healthy lives. If we fail to account for that, we miss something very vital that needs to be taken into account if we're going to continue our journey to healing. So back to the next slide, next week. We're going through quickly, but I think you can have a feel of what we're building on here. So in the third week, we're going to take a deep dive into what we know about hormonal aspects of male menopause and how it impacts men, women, and society. And again, this quote from, female doctor, colleague of mine, Nancy Seidel, author of Double Menopause, What to Do When Both You and Your Mate Go Through Hormonal Changes Together, which is true for many of us. So this is the quote: as a gynecologist and reproductive endocrinologist, I believe hormones make the world go round. Male menopause has always existed, but only recently has it been acknowledged and given its own identity. It is not the equivalent to female menopause, but many men lose potency, energy, and drive between 40 and 80 years of age. So again, just briefly back to, let me look you in the eye. We have to take those realities into account. Again, this doesn't have to be a dark, negative reality. All of it is real, including suicides. It can be our recognition and call to action. It's what energizes us to do the work that we do. But the realities of what I call the male menopause passage are ones that I want you to understand fully. As I've understood it over the years, it's infused my life and been something that's been helpful to me as I've gotten older, and now hopefully into the elder part of my life that I can now be passing some of this on to you. So next slide, Sean. So in week 4, we explore the importance of the hormone testosterone and how fluctuations and changes throughout the lifespan impact the body, mind, and spirit of men. And this quote by, again, colleague no longer with us, James McBride Dabbs. He's the author of an incredible book called Heroes, Rogues, and Lovers, Testosterone and Behavior. And he says, in ancient Greece, an inscription at the Oracle of Delphi advised, know thyself. Most of us would like to know more about our roots, and our roots are biological as well as social and political. Our bodies are animal bodies. Our brains, as complex as they are, have animal origins. Our thoughts and emotions are nudged about by hormones that are the same as the hormones that affect other animals. Again, back to, so again, these are things that I didn't know, and most men still don't know. And it's, the quote, I think, speaks to a truth that I will get into in depth, which is teaching us all, and most of you, I think, have things to learn that I needed to learn over many years about our biological roots. Not as a way, as many people fear, and I want to underline this, that many people feared, including women, that if we talk about our biological differences, or if we talk about differences, differences have been used for centuries by some people to keep some people in their place. And we all know, truths in our own lives and the lives of people we know, that the differences have said something like, I'm a man, I'm different, I'm biologically different. You're a woman, in some cases, you're different, you're biologically different. And we guys are biologically able to do certain things that you just can't. You're just too weak. You're just too hormonal. You're just too emotional. So there's a natural, and I think an understandable fear of looking at biological realities and talking about biological differences. But I believe, as I say, the truth will set you free. We do not need to add the sexist, racist, all the other isms that go with making us different to be able to talk about real differences and see the beauty and the value in the fact that we're different, and to see what we can build on that will help us deal as men with the vulnerabilities that are unique to us. And the females have vulnerabilities that are related to having two X chromosomes that we don't have, like childbirth. Anybody here given birth to a child out of your own body? No takers. Nobody has had a child birthed out of their own body. Well, most of us know women who have faced that reality. And through mammalian history, females that give birth have higher death rates. They die more quickly and more easily from giving birth. It's traumatic for everybody, right? The baby and the mother. What we contribute is significant, or they wouldn't be any babies, but we didn't put our lives at risk generally to have a pregnancy that we had to put our lives on the line to bring to fruition. Okay, next slide. So in week 5, we're going to go and examine male menopause and the new midlife passage, and the studies that show that midlife unfolds between the ages of 35 and 75 in 3 stages, the core of which begins in a man's 50s. And this is a quote from Chip Conley, again, friend and colleague, and author of a number of books, including Learning to Love Midlife, 12 Reasons Life Gets Better with Age. Chip says, in my opinion, and of a growing number of sociologists and psychologists and other experts, I would add, in a world with more and more centenarians, midlife may last from 35 to 75, just as adolescence is a transitional stage between childhood and adulthood. Maybe part of midlife's role is to be a transitional stage between adulthood and elderhood. So we've kind of covered this, but I just want to tell you a little bit about Chip Conley. Do people know? Raise your hand if you know about Chip Conley and his work. Some of you do, most of you don't. Chip Conley, I met Chip in San Francisco many years ago. He started a hotel chain called Joie de Vivre, and he built that into a hotel conglomerate. Then we became the largest hotel chain of independent hotels in, I think, in the country. And then he kind of retired. He's gone through a number. He retired, and he was invited by a young group of startup guys who were starting what came to be called Airbnb. Any of you heard of that company? Yeah, I think most people have heard of Airbnb. Chip was hired to kind of teach them about, the hotel business, because, this kind of business had started. And, Chip not only helped build that company, but he recognized a term called mentee. He thought he was both a mentor and a mentee. He was learning from these young guys, and he was teaching, which is part of, we'll talk about as we get to the end of this presentation, what we'll be doing and what you all will be doing in the next phase of this course. So Sean, next slide. So in week 6, we look at the ways male menopause impacts all aspects of our health and how we can use the knowledge to remain strong and active throughout our lives. And again, another colleague, Greg Bowron, is an MD. He wrote a great book called Man Overboard, a medical lifeline for the aging male. He's very hilarious and very funny guy, and gives really good information about men as we age. And here's what he says: when it comes to the hormonal changes of growing older, women get the message on a billboard called menopause. Men get the message on a small postcard, or rather a series of small postcards, the first of which states, "It's a small injury, but it'll take weeks to recover." Many of these postcards arrive in the morning when you arise to some new pain and ask yourself, what did I do to make it feel this way? We've all felt that. Anyway, I want to just kind of clue you into Craig and his work. You might check out that book if you're a male and getting older. And as again, I said, all these little quotes that I've lived with are not just interesting quotes. They are wisdom that I know from inside, either because I know the people and we've worked together, or these are things I've lived with my life. So part of the passing on to you is not so you can have an interesting quote, but so you can take in some of the wisdom of somebody like me who's lived with some of this through my lives. And now it's part of my job to pass it on to you all, and also to tell you some of the people I've learned from so that you can get to know who they are. So Sean, next slide. So week 7, in the 7th week, we will explore the ways the modern male elder can reimagine love, work, and the truth about our inner experience of being a man in a challenging and changing world. And this quote is, again, from David White, English spelling, White, and his book, The 3 Marriages, Reimagining Work, Self, and Relationship. And David says, everyone is committed consciously or unconsciously to 3 marriages. There is the first marriage, the one we usually mean to another. That second marriage, which can so often seem like a burden, to work or a vocation. And the third and most likely hidden marriage, a core conversation inside ourselves. We can call these 3 separate commitments marriages because at their core, they are usually lifelong commitments. Okay. I love this quote I love the book. I love teaching what it embodies for me, because I think for me, it resonates. I put a lot of energy in my life on my work. And for a long time, I neglected the other important marriages. And when I got married, I realized I was neglecting my marriage. I needed to put more energy there. And that last marriage is one I think for many of us is kind of the core of it all. It's who we are and our relationship to ourself. And in some way, that's what we're here to do together. So I want to wrap this up and have Sean say a little bit more about the course and what you all are going to be in store for. And then I'll kind of share some final things before we wrap it up for today. So Sean, talk a little bit more about the 7 weeks and what people both who are on camera today and those that will be watching this later can look forward to.
Yeah, thanks, Jed. Thanks for your wisdom. Guys, the plan is just has laid out over the next 7 weeks. At this time on Saturday, Jed will spend 75 to 90 minutes going over at least in more detail the summary of which he shared in these last set of 7 slides. So a different subject matter topic for that week, 75 to 90 minutes. And then whoever is participating in the course will be broken up into smaller cohorts to be led by a Men Living facilitator. I think right now, Jim Herbert and Mike Patterson have raised their hands as the first guys that would lead one of these cohorts to kind of have a conversation around the subject that Jed has shared for that particular week, and really to begin to build this sense of community amongst the guys who are participating in that group. So Jed's meeting on a Saturday, and then the group will get together and decide what the best time is to meet and kind of review that subject as a small cohort. That will continue for the 7 weeks. We hope that those groups stay together over beyond those 7 weeks. But that's the intent right now. The course is $200. We've communicated that already. There'll be more details coming next week, but that's the overview. Since we're on it, any questions?
Can we get a raise of hands of how many guys are interested in being part of the class?
Thanks, guys. And we will we will be sending out this video to the guys who couldn't be here. I think we had about 35 guys who attended live, and there was another 35 or so that showed interest. So we'll be sending this out to them as well. Oh, and Todd, you said you're interested, but you'll be traveling. All of the sessions will be recorded, so you can watch the videos, and then you can communicate with, again, your facilitator or your lead for your cohort, how you might be able to participate in those conversations. And I think the intent, right, Jim and Mike, would be to find, time that works obviously for the majority of the guys in your group. So again, the intent of all of this is to not only help us be better men as we age, but also to give us a sense of community and connection with other men. And then hopefully that we can take that energy and move it out and engage some younger men as well. And there'll be more dialogue on that down the road. All right, Jed, you want to wrap it up?
So this has been a delight to be with you. It's been important to me. I hope this has been helpful to you all that have been here and those that will be watching this later. I want to say just a couple of additional things about the ongoing course. And I'm really excited about doing this. This is a new thing that we developed in response to Sean and your all desire to get more in depth with eldering. I feel like I've wanted to share these. As Sean knows, I've developed a number of trainings for people. In fact, this is something that I just want to let everybody know about, that everybody who takes this course will get credit. I'm will be doing a series of courses over the next number of years for people that want to get, who basically want to work in the field. Some of you already are, but want to get additional training in what I call gender specific health coaching, which is this really a new field that I've been part of for a number of years. And so through ManAlive, my organization, anybody that takes any of the courses will get credit towards certification. So anybody that takes this will automatically be eligible to get that. That's just an added benefit for taking it. But I think the real value immediately in continuing on will be the opportunity for us to continue to work together. I feel like I'm called on to share at this time of my life as I'm getting farther into my 80s and with all my midlife children and challenges in life. You know, hopefully I'll be doing this, as I told Sean. I think I got another 20 good years in me, and I'm hopefully not only going to be a centenarian, but a healthy centenarian, and continue to be a good role model for my children and grandchildren and great grandchildren. To here's what it looks like to be an 80-year-old guy and a 90-year-old guy. And when I get done with this today, I got to do my regular walk. I do a walk up the hills and keep myself in good shape, as well as other exercises, which I put off for our morning gathering, but we'll pick up after we're done. And finally, I just want to honor all of you guys at Men Living, because I've known of your work for some time, mainly through Sean and some of the rest of you that I've gotten to meet. And what you're doing is just really, really good work, and I think you know that, who are part of it. And I feel blessed to be able to be creating together with you, and look forward to continuing to meet with you over these next 7 more weeks. And in the meantime, I want to just put out my personal offer to anybody that wants to contact me directly. If you have any, individual questions that you want to run by me, just email me. My email is Jed, just Jed at ManAlive.com. And Sean can send that out when he sends that out to everybody, but just Jed at ManAlive.com. If you have any questions about anything, I'm happy to answer them individually. And then hopefully for those of us that will be continuing on, thanks, Sean, together, we will have some fun, because to me, this is the most fun thing I can imagine doing in life. That's part of why I want to be around for another 20 years to do it. I'm, having a great time with my wife, my kids, my grandkids, my great grandkids, my people I teach and mentor and are mentored by. So thank you again for this chance to be together with you. I hope we can continue this process, and, together we can, as I think we all are wanting and committed to, is making a difference in the world for all of us while we're here, and for all of those who are coming with us and coming after us. So thank you, my friends. If anybody wants to just write a word or two in the chat that kind of summarizes for you how you're feeling, and if anybody just wants to say, a word of farewell, I just want to, end with my own just sense of gratitude, delight, and some anticipation of continuing to be with you today and in the future as we roll out these next weeks, and hopefully over a longer period of time of involvement together. Sean?
We've got 6 minutes. Anybody got a question or another comment they want to make verbally? right. Then I will. Thank you guys all for attending. Hope to see you in the weeks ahead, whether it be in Jed's course or elsewhere. I'm sure we will connect. So thank you for coming. Much appreciated. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Peace and love.
Thank you.